Hello, welcome back. Let's take a look in this video at pronouns and problems with that require special care in pronouns. So if you follow along with me, I've got some rules and again some examples, and I'll give you some pointers to help make it a little bit easier as well. The first problem that requires special care with pronouns is called pronoun case in compound constructions. That means when you're using pronouns with the words, with the coordinating words and or. So let's take a look at the rule first of all and then the examples. Now it can be confusing when you have to decide which pronoun to use when there are two subjects or two objects and you've joined them with the words and or. And an example will make this clear momentarily. Remember that the rules still are the same. A subject pronoun is used for the subject of the verb, and an object pronoun is used for the object of the verb or the object of the preposition. So rules, 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 but look at examples, because examples will always help to clarify the rules. In this first one, Sam and I love to rent a cottage every summer. You cannot say Sam and me, because Sam is the subject and I is the subject, and those are the subjective pronouns. So you therefore say Sam and I love to rent a cottage every summer. In the second example, my mother often bakes special goodies for my sister and me. Me is an object of the preposition for. So she bakes them for my sister and she bakes them for me, and so sister is also the object of the preposition. Another thing you could have said, another way to clarify it in your own mind, is if you weren't sure if it was me or I and you wanted to say my mother often bakes special goodies for my sister and I, you could say my mother often bakes special goodies for my sister and my mother often bakes special goodies for me. So the answer is my sister and me. And then the third example, between you and me, I'm not enjoying this ball game. You and me are both objects of the preposition between. This is a preposition, and these are objects of the preposition, you and me. And if you're uncertain how to pick out prepositions, please take a look at my video on prepositions. That you'll find that very helpful. Keep in mind this rule that you can't use myself as a substitute for me or I in a compound construction. That is, if they're two. Compound means the two nouns or pronouns are joined with a joining word like and or. This example, John and myself will be there in about 10 minutes. You cannot say John and myself. You have to use the subjunctive form, and the subject is I. John and I will be there in about 10 minutes. That's correct. Now, if you try the tricks and pointers that I mentioned in my video, Pronoun Problems, Rules Made Easy, you'll find a lot of these rules are difficult to follow, but I've given you some little pointers in this video where I've tried to make rules easy. I haven't followed the rules as much as given you pointers in that video. So try taking a peek at that and see if you find that helpful. Another problem with pronouns is pronouns and comparisons. And let's take a look what I mean. Pronouns may be used in comparisons. They often will follow the words than or as. Than or as tell you it's going to be a comparison. So these pronouns can be in the subject, objective, or possessive cases. Let's look at what I mean further. Words are often omitted in comparisons to avoid being repetitious. So what I tell students to do is mentally fill in the missing word to help you choose what is the correct pronoun to use. Let me show you this with examples. Let's take a look at the first one. I never loved anyone as much as. How do you know if you say he or him? If you're not certain, let me give you a little pointer. In this case, you're using the object form of the pronoun, which would be him. And here's a pointer. You could say, I never loved anyone as much as I loved. So I would have added in the verb. I never loved anyone as much as I love he, or I never loved anyone as much as I loved him. So I added in the verb I loved. I never loved anyone as much as I loved him. So therefore, you would use him, not he. Let's take a look at this example. You could never even hope to be smarter than she or her. So in this case, if you put in the understood word is, you could never hope to be smarter than she is or her is. You would say you could never hope to be smarter than she is. And she is the subject of the understood verb is. So always put in the another word, an imaginary verb, to help you to understand which is the correct pronoun to use. Now, that's quite a few rules, so let me go over 3 practice questions just to make it a little bit easier. And again, if you're really baffled by this, if you don't understand these rules, try the practice questions at the end of the video. I have 3 sets of practice questions with answers, and if you still don't understand them, then please feel free to contact me, and I'm glad to give you further assistance. So A, my sister Kim has a better job than. So is it I or me? So let's do in our minds, let's fill in another word to help us. My sister Kim has a better job than, add do. My sister Job has a better job than, or not do, than I have, sorry, because you've got the verb has, have. My sister Kim has a better job than I have, or my sister Kim has a better job than me have. Well, it would be she has a better job than I have. So I put in the verb have. That loud noise on the street annoys my parents more than. So you've got the verb annoys, right? So that loud noise on the street annoys my parents more than we are annoyed, or more than us is annoyed. So it would be more than we are annoyed, or the loud noise on the street annoys my parents more than it annoys, I'm so sorry, than us, not we, I'm sorry. That loud noise on the street annoys my parents more than it annoys us. All right, so if you put in the verb annoyed, it annoys my parents even more than it annoys us. So you'd have to put in the word annoys. And in this one, we don't go skating as frequently as they or them. So you've got the verb skating. So we don't go skating as frequently as they or them go skating. So just put in the imaginary verb at the end. We don't go skating as frequently as they go skating, or we don't go skating as frequently as them go skating. Well, we don't go skating as frequently as they go. Right, so I hope you found that helpful. And then here are other pronouns that are tricky. Students have a very hard time, and not just students, writers. People have said to me, how do you know the difference between who and whoever and whom and whomever? I'll try to explain it as best I can. Whether you use who or whoever or whom or whomever will depend on the place and the function of the pronoun in your sentence. Apply the rules of pronoun usage. And if the pronoun refers to or is acting in the subject, then you use who or whoever. But if it's not acting in the subject, it's acting in the form of an object, then it's whom or whomever. So, who and whoever are in the subjective case, they're subjective pronouns, and whom and whomever are called objective pronouns. They're in the objective case. So, this first one, who will be opening the act? Will be opening is the verb, so who is the subject? So you always use who in the subjective form. So in this case, it's who is opening the act, who becomes the subject. But in this one, the second one, for whom is that pizza? Whom is the object of the preposition for. So whenever there's a preposition, you would use whom after. So for is a preposition. So it's object of the preposition, so you'd have to say for whom. It's no longer subjective. It's objective. Here are more examples. The person who will win the prize must have the highest points. So the pronoun who refers to the subject of the sentence person. So it clearly refers to person, so who is the subject of the verb will win. The person who will win. So who is referring to the subject, it becomes the subjective. a subjective pronoun, and would be who. In this one, my sister was the one who ran in the local election. This is the subject. So the one who, you're referring to your sister. She is the one. The pronoun refers to the subject, which is sister. So she is the one. My sister is the one who. It's referring to the subject of the sentence, so you must use who in the subjective form. This next one, the company's salespeople were happy to sell their products to whomever they could. In this case, you've got a preposition. So whenever there's a preposition, this becomes object of the preposition. It's no longer in the subjective form, so you have to use whom, to whomever they could. So I explained here the pronoun does not refer to the subject of the sentence. It is the object of the preposition to. And the final example, Susan is a friend whom I once called my best friend. So you have a subject right here. I is the subject. And called is the verb. So since you have your subject and your verb, this has to be the objective form because it's the object now of the sentence. The subject is I, so the object pronoun whom is the right choice because whom becomes the object of the verb called. So the quick rule to help you, let's review that. First of all, you take a look at your sentence and you decide, you find who or whom, first of all, in your sentence. After you find who or whom, you look for the verb. And the trick is, if the verb does have a subject, then you use the object pronoun whom. If the verb does not have a subject, you have to use the subjective pronoun who. So let's explain that with these two examples. I know it is tricky. The handsome actor is a man who or whom I would love to date. If you take these quick rules and apply them here, I mentioned that first you look for who or whom in the sentence. Then you find the verb. The verb is would love. That's the verb. Here you have a subject, I. So since you have a subject, I, it would no longer be in the subjective because you've got a subject. It has to be whom in the object, in the objective, because you've got a subject and a verb following who or whom. In this case, the husband and wife, who or whom live at the corner, own the new variety store. Again, look for who and whom. Find the verb, it's live. Is there a subject in front of the verb live? No. So therefore you have to use the subjective form, the husband and wife, who becomes the subject, live, and then you go on from there. So here's another pointer. If it's difficult to decide whether you should use who or whom, you can eliminate those words and get rid of the problem completely by changing your sentence a little bit, by changing it slightly. And look at these examples. The first one I've given you, Susan is a friend who or whom I once called my best friend. If let's say you just can't figure out which one it is, you could simply change the sentence around and just say Susan is a friend I once called my best friend and just take out who and whom. Or if you want to be brave and take it a step further and really figure it out, again, Susan is a friend who or whom, there's your who and whom. Look for the verb, called is the verb. Is there a subject in front of the verb after who and whom? Yes, there is. There's your subject right there. So it's no longer the subjective form because you've got a subject. It wouldn't be who, it would be whom. Susan is a friend whom I once called my best friend. And in this next example, my sister, number 2, my sister was the one who or whom ran for mayor in the local election. If you want to avoid using who and whom, just change it up and say my sister ran for mayor in the local election. Just take it out completely. But if you wanted to be a little bit more specific, and she is the one, this one, you want to use the word the one, all right? Is it who or whom in this sentence? Well, you've got your who and whom, you've got your verb, ran. Is there a subject in front of the verb ran? No, there's no she or I, so it has to be the subjective form. You'd have to put who because there's no subject in front of the verb. Or again, just change it and say my sister ran for mayor in the local election. And moving along, who and whom in questions. How do you handle those words in questions, those pronouns? In sentences with questions, who is a subject pronoun and whom is an object pronoun. Okay, so who is a subject pronoun and whom in a question is an object pronoun. You can decide which pronoun to use in a question in the same way as you would in a statement. The same rules apply. So, this first one, who came late today? You use who, which is the subjective form, because who is the subject and came is the verb. So who is the subject and the verb is came. Whom should I ask to the party? In this sentence, I is the subject of the verb, I. The verb is should ask, that's the verb. So you've got the subject, I should ask, and now you would say, I should ask whom to the party. So you need to use the object form of the pronoun, which would be whom. And another example, who or whom do you think will win the treasure hunt? Let's look at this example. This is called an inverted sentence because it's not the regular construction. You didn't start with your subject and then your verb. So to help you, arrange the sentence in its natural or grammatical order, starting with the subject, then the verb, and this might help you to decide which pronoun to use. So change the sentence around, and instead of saying who do you think or whom do you think will win the treasure hunt, say you, which is the subject, do think is the verb, so it's no longer a question, who or whom will win the treasure hunt. So now if you follow the rules I told you, there's your who and whom, there's your verb will win. Is there a subject before will win? There isn't one. So you have to add it in, so it's who. Who becomes the subject of the verb will win. So it's who is the subject. Do you think will win the treasure hunt? And there's your answer right there. And almost done. The next rule is using pronouns with the ending self and selves. Self is singular and selves is plural. Self is singular and the plural is selves. So these are called reflexive pronouns. They're pronouns that end in self or selves, and they show that someone did something to himself or to himself or to herself. So the singular is myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, and here's the plural: ourselves, yourselves, themselves. So I've given you an example. Johnny cut himself quite badly with the knife. Right? That's object of the verb cut. He cut, who did he cut? Himself. It becomes object of the verb. In the second example, Sarah sent a postcard where? To herself while she was in Miami. You've got the preposition to, so you know it's going to be to herself. It's object of the preposition to, so you would have to use the reflexive pronoun herself, to herself. And one last type of pronoun that sometimes cause problems is called intensive pronouns. And let's take a look at what they are. They have the same forms as reflexive pronouns, but they're used a little bit differently. You use intensive pronouns to emphasize a noun or a pronoun that it refers to, but be careful you don't overuse them. And as an example, I, myself, will need to give her my written approval before she continues any further. So you wouldn't want to keep using that I, myself, she, herself, but it's more for emphasis. So you are emphasizing the fact that you need to get that approval before you go any further. Maybe it's hard for you to get the approval, so I, myself. You're intensifying. It's becoming more intensive. Or the next example, because you want to emphasize the noun or pronoun that you're referring to, he, himself, will be responsible for cleaning up the mess he made at the party. So instead of just saying he will be responsible for cleaning it up, you're adding more emphasis, you're more intense by saying he himself, like it's only going to be him. Maybe he was responsible for the mess at the party, so he himself will be responsible for cleaning up the mess he made at the party. So those are some special case pronouns with a few little pointers to help you. Again, try the practice exercise At the end of the video, there will be 3 sets of practices, and see how you do on them, and contact me if you're still having a hard time, particularly with who and whom. I know they can be tricky. Thank you. Thanks for joining me and following my video, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.